key and student number. Using curl, initializes a curl session with curl init $URL. If the wallet address exists, a success message is returned with the address. If the address is missing, it returns an error message indicating that. Handling API failure. If success is not true, it returns the error message from the API via description or a generic API error message. 9. Finalizing output. Flushing the buffer, OBI end flush ends output buffering and flushes the contents to the client to ensure all output is sent cleanly. Both ePHP, Peso, and BNB crypto similar to ETH using the iSecure API. 1. Defining the API URLs and private key balance URL Peso, JAWS, https jawsapi.isecures.net, balance Peso. Balance URL BNB chior http jawsapi.isecures.net, balance BNB. Private key keysquamtami warus msbht. These are two API endpoint URLs. Balance Peso retrieves the ePHP balance BNB, retrieves the BNB balance. The private key is required for authorization. This proves to the API that your system is allowed to access student wallet info. 2. Preparing the data to send to the API. Our data, cars. Private key, student.no, HARS, username. This array contains the required credentials. The private key, the student.no, student number, stored in the $username variable, assumed to be set before this block. This data will be sent as a JSON payload to both balance APIs. Function to get wallet. Balance from API function getBalance, URL, data, how. This reusable function is responsible for calling the API and returning the decoded balance. Inside the function, $ch equals curl init, $URL semicolon, initializes a new curl session using the given $URL, either Peso or BNB balance, API curl set option, $ch, curl opt post, true semicolon, curl set opt, ch, curl opt, header, content type, application, JSON, curl set opt, curl opt return transfer, true, curl set opt, curl opt post fields, JSON, encode, data. These curl options configure the request, use post method set. Content type to JSON, send the JSON encoded data, private key plus student number. Tell curl to return the response as a string curl. Set opt, each, curl opt, SL, verify peer, false. Curl set opt h, curl opt, SSL, verify host, false. Equals get balance URL Peso, data, BNB balance response, get balance URL BNB data. Calls the get balance function twice, once for the Peso balance response, once for the BNB balance, $BNB balance response. After this, each variable will hold the API's response, usually including the actual balance, wallet address, and maybe transaction info. Used to process a payment transaction from a student to the school's wallet using iSecure's Send Pesoto API. It also records the transaction in the database, updates the student's balance, and shows a success or error pop-up using Suite Alert. 1. Check if form is submitted. If server request method, cham post. Ensures this script only runs when a form is submitted using the post method. Prevents the code from executing when accessed via GET or directly from the browser. 2. Include database connection, include include connect.php. Loads the database connection assumed to use PDO so you can run SQL queries later in the script. 3. Retrieve and sanitize form data student no HTML special cars post username. User ID, HTML special cars post userid. Transaction type ID, HTML special cars post transaction types ID. Amount float val post amount. Transaction date. To prevent XSS attacks. Uses float val to make sure numerical data is treated as floating point numbers for amounts. Computes the new balance after the payment. Outstanding balance equals balance amount minus amount paid for. Prepare for blockchain payment via iSecure API, Sendural Peso. Sign https api.isecures.net send pesoto. Private key, sign key skmmtmiwo hrusmzbh. Sets the API endpoint for sending ePHP peso to another wallet. The private key authenticates your request with the iSecure platform. 5. Build payload to send to the API data. Shan private key. Shan private key. Studentino. Sha studentino. Value. Amount 2. 0xBB38X3035XFFBBD 115D4377 C265B60A 1367E6C38. This array is the request body sent to the API. It includes student no, sender, student value, amount to send to, receiver wallet address, school finance wallet. 6. Function to call the API function, send peso transaction, URL, data, ba. This function sends the actual request to the iSecure server, uses curl to send the data, configures the request, post method, JSON content, type SSL verification disabled, for testing only, displays a pop-up message showing that the transaction succeeded, redirects the user back to payment.php after clicking OK. 9. If transaction failed, error description equals piezo transaction response open bracket, description close bracket, question mark, unknown, error occurred. Gets the error message from the API if the transaction fails. swal.fire, icon, error, title, transaction failed, text, error description, displays an error pop-up with the reason for the failure, lets the user go back to the form to try again. This code is responsible for displaying a table that lists all payment transactions made by a student. It begins by setting up an HTML table with headers such as transaction date, amount, transaction hash, recipient wallet, description, and transaction type. These headers define the structure of the data to be shown. In the PHP block, it initializes a counter to number each transaction row. It then runs a SQL query using PDO to fetch all transactions from the transactions table where the student ID matches the current user. It also joins the transaction structure types table to include the readable name of the transaction type, e.g., enrollment, miscellaneous. The query is executed, and if any records are found, it loops through each transaction. For each record, it extracts important details such as the date of the transaction, the amount paid, the wallet address it was sent to, a description, like what the payment was for, the blockchain transaction hash, and the transaction type name. Each transaction is displayed as a row in the table. The transaction hash is clickable and links to Etherscan, Sepolia testnet, allowing the user to view the transaction on the blockchain. If the page was refreshed after a new transaction, determined by a variable named $, is refresh, the most recent transaction row is highlighted in light green to show it's newly added. If there are no transactions, the table displays a single row with a message saying, "No transactions found."